Hello, 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 MouseHunt. Welcome to Feedback Friday. It is June 29, 2018. Hello and greetings to everyone in the chat. Hi there, Jacobs, who said, have I arrived too soon? Right on time, as Nico pointed out, and Dennis. Hello, hello, Brian. So who do we have here? We have Patricia, Nico, KDM, Dennis, Jacobs, Ray, Brian, Kate, Peter, Free. Hello, hello. Well, I hope everyone's doing well today. This is actually, I guess I've now done Feedback Friday. This will be the third week in a row, mainly because we're still kind of having some meetings on Fridays, and Jacob, when he does Feedback Friday, he usually does it from home because he's set up a little bit better there for painting. He has his tablet set up. But we have a couple other short meetings today, so I wanted Jacob in the office to participate in said meetings. So here I am again. But in case you're sick of my face, I think Jacob will join you next week. I think that's a pretty safe bet, unless the barrage of meetings continues. We'll see. Hello, Grant says this is the greatest show. Glad to hear. Well, today I wanted to go over Queso Canyon feedback. This just being the first Feedback Friday since the release, I thought we'd get some first impressions, some early feedback, any questions about the region, the areas, and the adventure. And thought I'd kind of write down feedback, questions from the chat. I'll kind of do my best to type that up as well for the summary. So by all means in the chat, KTM says, knew it wants feedback on Feedback Friday. What a surprise. Jacob says 7.8 out of 10, too much queso. Too much queso. No such thing as too much delicious cheese. We need to get the ball started. I think I saw a comment from Brian in the chat a few minutes before we even went live about why wild tonic is not sold for Notchore in the general store, which actually an interesting question because originally that was the plan. We were looking for something, what would you do with all the excess Notchore once you leveled up your pump to level 10? You didn't really have much use for Notchore. Originally we're just going to pump it all into wild tonic. However, during playtesting, the balance didn't quite work out, and I think the crux of the problem, if I'm using that word correctly, was that if you use tonic to get more Notchore, and then you use Notchore to get more tonic, it cycles too well. So during playtesting, with a little bit of strategic use of tonic, I was able to buy back more tonic than I even spent with using the Notchore that I looted. So that kind of led to us brainstorming, coming up with queso pump charms, which those were not in the original design for the area, but we were looking for something else that you could pump your Notchore into to help speed up the area, give you a boost in the area and put your excess Notchore to good use, but it just couldn't be something that would then in turn give you more Notchore. So the pump charms were a nice solution because they give you more queso, which indirectly gives you more Notchore, but not as dramatic, where you can't use a few pieces of tonic to double big drops of Notchore and then buy back all the tonic that you just used. So yeah, it was kind of an infinite wild tonic problem came up during playtesting, and that led to the queso pump charms. KDM says, did you expect anyone to complete it in 3 days? Maybe not directly, but bait keep charms are vastly powerful, but by all means, I don't think it's sustainable to continue that great speed of progress. You will run out of bait keep charms eventually, but it's a good use for the resource. I'd argue too, you've done the adventure, but there's still lots more to explore in the area as well. Kate says she's liking the new area and the mechanics are fun. Good to hear. Jay says, have there been tweaks to bland drop rates since the release? No, despite suspicions, it's very rare that we go in and tweak things that quickly. Often a pattern that we've been using is waiting for the treasure map release. So we'll kind of wait 1 or 2 weeks after. We'll get a lot of feedback, and that's a good use to understand, what are we going to put in the treasure chests. Can there be an increase in the spice drop and make them 100% drop? I got 0 sometimes. Well, there is one mouse. I think when you're using the various levels of queso in the plains, there's one mouse that will always drop a spice, and then there's another mouse where it's not a guaranteed drop from that mouse. And it just kind of made it, during playtesting, if every single mouse always dropped the same thing, it just got very repetitive. There were no kind of highs and lows, and it felt a little too much like a boring grind rather than those moments of getting multiple drops in a row. Like you get the good mouse 3-4 times in a row, and then you get that not so good mouse, but he still dropped something, and then it was an exciting moment. It created a little bit more variety, a little bit more context, or a little bit emotional variety of sometimes you're like, oh no, I'm on a streak of bad luck. Oh good, now I'm on a streak of good luck. Just felt less sort of like you're just going through the motions of this much cheese will turn into this much spice, will turn into this much of the next cheese. Add a little bit of variety, add some RNG luck so you could have a good run or not a quite so good run. That said, hopefully we didn't set up anything where it's too, the standard deviation is too wide. I think most people would land in the middle and have very similar results, but there's less likely to have the outliers of somebody doing it incredibly, or having an incredibly well run and somebody having an incredibly poor run. By having one mouse with a decent attraction rate that always drops it, it helps sort of tighten things up and make sure that people have a similar experience but still a slightly different experience. Matthew says, to me the difficulty and rarity of crafting the higher cheeses, there are more than a fair share of fail to attracts. Now as you go up in levels of queso, it gets less and less likely to fail to attract. So your flaming cheese, I think, is 99% attraction rate. Wildfire, I believe, is 100. But the bland and the mild, they do have a chance to fail to attract, but it's not a huge chance. And again, kind of going back to adding a little bit more variety so that it's not the exact same motions you're going through over and over again, where you can, the next 20 hunts are going to be borderline identical. Just at least while we're playtesting it, that kind of felt a little bit boring. Also give a little bit of a use if you have some attraction charms, if you have an attraction bonus on a trap, especially with some of the lower level queso cheeses such as the bland and the mild. The mice aren't particularly hard to catch, so you may want to sacrifice some power for a better attraction bonus, and kind of gave use to some of that equipment. Ashley says, first thoughts were, why do some things in the general scene need a ton of nacho or unstable charms? You're way better of just buying with Marketplace or Ron Desene's Ways. Well, it's very early. Obviously, this is just day 4. By the end of this, you can actually get nacho going at a pretty good clip. So I'd say give it a little bit more time. Some of those items in the game, they might not be as fast as if you go to the area dedicated to that reward and you spend your time there. You'll probably get a little bit faster. But while you're working on crowns and other objectives in the area, the nacho kind of keeps coming in at a trickle. And at a reasonable pace, you can buy some of those rewards. I guess most notably the big ticket items would be the Ultimate Charm and the Bait Keep Charm. They're around 400,000 nacho, and so that's a little bit slower than going to the Living Garden and getting 3 eye essences, roughly, depending on sort of your approach and the equipment that you use. But it's sort of a nice slow trickle, so eventually there's something to save up for, or you can cash out for the smaller items. There's the Magmatic Golden Charms, the meteorite pieces if you're a little bit low on those and you want to go back to Fort Rocks to work on something. Tonic to maps, yes, that is the plan. So maps are coming out soon, and actually we'll go over that right after kind of getting some feedback on the area, and there will be Tonic in the treasure maps, the treasure chests that are rewarded for doing the Queso Canyon maps that are coming out in the not too distant future. Jacob says, is there a reason Tonic is both this rare of a drop and this hard to get? Market price is around 100k, 4 times the cost of Tower Mana. I think the main thing that's affecting that is that Tower Mana has been in the game for months and months and months and months, so the supply is high and the demand is low. It's only been 4 days, so not very much has made its way into the game, so of course, and the demand for it is through the roof, so of course it's going to be worth a lot, but as time progresses, I think that will continue to drop. Especially as more hunters build their level 10 pump, then you can really start going through the area a lot quicker. And that allows you to farm and get more tonic drops because the Nacho or boss drops some tonic. Can someone explain why the base needs 15-12 of each small boss loot's not equal, like 12-12 or 15-15? Well, I think actually I might have to double check, but if you buy everything in the shop, I think it works out to the same amount of roots and stones. That said, unlike other areas, you have a lot of autonomy over controlling what items you end up with. So if you have too many stones, you can just not hunt in the quarry, and if you have too many roots, you just don't hunt in the plains, and you can even out your loot very easily. Purple asks, we've got Tonic, where's the gin? Well, there are a lot of those flowers. I guess it would be a spicy one, but there's a lot of those desert spice leaves, maybe, so there's some desert flowers that you could distill. We'll leave that to hunters. I don't think we figured out that crafting recipe yet. Why is Tonic this rare? Was there no balanced way to add Tonic to the store without imbalancing the area? Correct. So I went over that at the start. During playtesting, that was the original plan, was you'd be able to buy Tonic with Notchore, but the individual Tonic would have to be over 1,000 Notchore each to even get it to reasonably balance. Now, again, it's kind of early. As you level up your pump, your ability to farm Notchore starts to go through the roof. So, for instance, one playtesting run, I think I had the cost of Tonic at 300, like the charms are, and with a little bit of strategic play and a level 10 pump, I was able to buy back about 95% of the Tonic that I spent back with the Notchore that I looted. So basically, I'd never run out of Tonic if I could buy it with Notchore. And so when we ran into that problem, we came up with the Queso pump charms. We put those as the thing that you can cash out all your excess Notchore for to speed up your Queso collection, but not speed up your Notchore collection. Because, like as I said earlier, if Tonic gets you Notchore and Notchore gets you Tonic, you just never run out. Boss drops Tonic, yes, has a chance to drop Tonic. And throughout the quarry, all the mice have a chance to drop Tonic. That's sort of going to add a trickle of Tonic to the game, and over time that'll keep the supply going a little bit if you're looking at the marketplace to get Tonic. And as I said too, we'll go over treasure maps, but with the treasure map in the chest, there'll be Tonic as well, because that'll help get another little trickle in, and maps aren't directly linked to collecting Notchore, so it didn't kind of create the same cycle. But on a similar note, the treasure maps will not reward Notchore, so that it doesn't feed into that cycle. And as well, if somebody's never been to the area but they've been on a map, they might show up and be able to upgrade to a level 10 pump right away. It kind of feels like it takes a little bit of the fun and achievement out of the area. So the maps won't have Notchore, but they will have Tonic, as well as the Queso pump charms can be a reward from treasure chests. And Ashley says, oh, okay, so we get to big bosses, and that gives us back some of the Tonic we spent in the first place to get to that point. Yes, but just a trickle, because obviously anything, if you're using a resource to collect another resource, and then that resource gives you back the original resource, then you don't run out of that resource, meaning it shouldn't even exist. It's no longer a resource to manage. It could just be, you just double all the drop rates constantly. So the resource turns into a different thing that you can then do something with. Kind of helps it balance a little bit better where you actually have to manage that resource. The Tonic as well, it's a little bit different than, say, Tower Mana or Lantern Oil in that it is incredibly potent depending on how you decide to use it. So if you just turn it on and never turn it off, you're going to use a Tonic every single hunt. But if you only have 10, you can still actually do a lot with just that 10 if you double your flaming drops. If you wait until you have a hunting mice that drop lots of Notchore and that's when you use it, you still come out ahead. So if you compare somebody, say they did 100 hunts and they had Tonic armed all 100 hunts, versus somebody who did 100 hunts and only used Tonic for 10 of them, they're still almost where that person was that used 100 Tonic. If you strategically use it, you can almost be as effective. Obviously not as effective if you double every single thing, but if you double the important things, and you can still have a lot of progression and use 90% less Tonic than somebody else. What about the thing that we poke? Does that have some? I don't believe there's any Tonic in that drop table. Any release time to the treasure maps? Yeah, we'll get to treasure maps full steam ahead. I wanted to kind of end the stream on that. We'll shift gears pretty soon. Kate, that's good. Nice to have balance. Well, obviously, perception is important as well, so always open to feedback. And like I said, with the treasure maps, we're going to add Tonic to the treasure chest rewards, and that'll kind of add another source of it into the game. Will the Tonic and treasure chest be fixed or random quantity? I think in rare, it's always a random quantity. In rare, though, you're guaranteed to find Tonic, and in the non-rare, I think it's 60-40, 50-50 something right now we're playtesting, where there's either a chance to get the pump charms or the Tonic. Is the wiki still down? I believe that was fixed this morning by Giorgio. Actually, he booked today off, and he fixed the wiki, so he's a nice guy. I just realized I'm just sitting here next to a blank old castle. I think I meant to at least sit next to something a little bit more interesting, artwork-wise. All right, so we'll shift gears here. I wanted to give a quick rundown of what we're working on, and we'll end on Queso Canyon Treasure Maps. So first, just want to give a quick little update to the friend system update that we're working on. So I think we discussed this last week, listed off some improvements that we're working on that are coming to the game. The two big things that we're adding are it is the ability to invite someone to a map that is not on your friends list, so you'll be able to go to their profile and send them a map invite without having to be friends. And of course, there'll be a user preference setting. You have to opt into that. So by default, it says, I don't want strangers to send me invites, but then you can go to settings and you can opt in and say, you know what, anyone can send me invites, and then you can receive invites. The second big thing is a friend list management tool that will allow you to easily remove more than one person at a time. That was a very popular feature request. So we're wrapped up all that. We're going to be testing that next week, probably testing it alongside Queso Canyon Treasure Maps, and alongside something else that I'm forgetting about as well. But basically then, I think that would be the 10th of June. Let me look at a calendar. July. I'm in the past here. 10th of July, I think we're aiming for. There'll be a whole bunch of stuff coming out on the 10th of July, that Friends system update to add that better tool. There's lots of other tweaks. You can look at the previous week's Feedback Friday notes. I think I tried to list a bit of an upcoming changelog. Any skins coming out for the traps in Queso Canyon? None planned at the moment, but could add them in the not too distant future, maybe. How does one fit 25,000 queso inside of a tiny gadget? That's what makes it so unstable and magical. Sally asks, how would you find that person's profile? Will be their search for non-friends? Well, I mean, the scoreboard is a search, but I think I'm open to sort of response here from the chat in case our assumptions are wrong. But the feedback we've heard is that there's often groups, whether it be on Facebook, a Discord, Reddit, looking for people to help them with their maps, or on the forums and the meet and greet, that sort of thing. So somebody can give you their hunter profile, just either link it to you or give their hunter ID. They can share a link to their profile, and then when you show up, you can click the button to send them an invite. And I think that was, we were looking for reasons why hunters wanted big friends lists. And one of the most popular responses was, well, I do a lot of maps, so I'm constantly adding people to my friends list so I can send them a map invite. But then you might never do a map with them again, so it kind of felt a bit odd to be on your friends list to begin with. So this kind of addresses, well, why do you need 3,000 people on your friends list? It was just because if it was just for maps, then maybe the friend requirement for maps doesn't make a lot of sense. Is there anything ridiculously extremely interesting you've seen people say on Reddit, the forums, about Queso Canyon yet? Well, I will say it was interesting right on release day how quickly many hunters picked up the sort of correlation, or the sort of analyzing the efficiency, if you will, of knowing, well, the pump level I have is going to determine how spicy of queso I can reasonably sustain. So if you try with, say, a level 4 or level 3 pump to make a piece of flaming queso, you're going to spend so much time pumping that it's not worth it. You should instead ignore the flaming queso and instead just make some medium to go get some notch ore to upgrade your pump until you're strong enough that like, okay, now it makes sense. I can start rolling out the really spicy queso. So that I found that very interesting how quickly players picked up on that. It means hopefully then the feedback was good in the HUD and everything else. Everything was clear of what you should be doing, and the unclear thing was the what's the best way to go about it. And so a lot of thought. It was interesting to see players thinking about what's the best way to go about it and coming up with those theories. Sally suggests a search for non-friends in the mapping interface. I still think, I don't know if that would be particularly useful if it was just searching for everyone in the game. I could see some sort of like pairing or matchmaking system where you're looking for other people that are in the same area of the same rank, looking to join a similar map, something like that. Fleshing out a feature like that, it would probably be a lot of work, so I don't think we'd take it on at least in the immediate future, but certainly sort of informally that happens on Facebook groups, that happens on the forums, that happens on Discord, where people kind of meet up with other people who they know now, hey, I want to do a map with you. So by sharing your Hunter profile link, that will empower you to quickly send them an invite without first having to go through the formalities of a friend request. Purple says the friend system update will make life so much easier in my map. Thank you. Glad to hear it. Brian says, RIP Dusty Coal Charm. That was an oversight. And so I had kind of feedback come in on Facebook about the Dusty Coal Charm being available for a single notch ore. And it was an oversight that charm has +5 luck. So it was unfortunately removed in the interest of balance. Open to feedback whether you'd like to see that charm come back at a cost that makes a little bit more sense. But like I said, once you get a level 10 pump, you can start getting over 30 notch ore per hunt on average. So if you do 100 hunts in a day, that means, I'm testing out my math here, that's 300, let me do a calculator before I embarrass myself. Yeah, I'm going to do 30 times 100 on a calculator. That's 3,000. You're getting 3,000 notch ore per day. So being able to get 3,000 dusty coal charms per day seemed a little bit absurd. Would be good to be able to sort by number of map clues. I'll write that down. I think actually we have that in the idea bank here. Let me just double check. So another thing we're working on, and we won't go over too much today because it's not in the immediate future, treasure map improvements. Where we got it? The next season of the Relic Hunter, kind of once a year. It's a nice moment to look at quality of life improvements or making the maps system better in general. Let's see if we have sort. No, we don't have that, so I'm going to add that. That's a very good idea. Ability to sort friends by total clues, etc. from the invite interface. So I'm not on a map right now to check, but I believe when you're inviting people, you cannot sort by those columns. That sounds like that would be useful. Awesome art for the Ember Prison Core. It turned out very neat. I almost want that as like a desktop background. It's very interesting, a lot of little details. Jacob, I think it took him a little while to paint that. That might have been a few days of work, but it shows in all the little details and the lighting. There's lots of little interesting things to look at in the trap. It's pretty out there in terms of a mouse trap, but it's definitely a place I would not want to be, and I would assume a mouse would not want to be in the center of that thing either. Tarako is worried that you will receive, you get a spam of unwanted map invites. You opt into that, so the default behavior is you still have to be friends with somebody to receive an invite, but you'll be able to check a box in the settings and say, hey, anyone can send me invites. Alright, so we'll move on to Queso Canyon Treasure Maps, as that's sort of the next thing we're working on in tandem as well. And we've already touched on it a lot with feedback and questions from the chat. But this coming week, we're going to be wrapping up our work on the Queso Canyon Treasure Map release. The scroll case, it's going to be called you can let us know what you think of this, but right now we're calling it a Queso Canyoneer scroll case, since we may want to add more areas to the region at some point in the future, so we didn't want to call it a Queso Canyon scroll case, because if we add new areas and the resources are different, we probably have a different scroll case for that, that adventure, if there's another adventure in the region. So just like other scroll cases, you'll be able to purchase it from the cartographer using ancient relics. The Queso Canyon Treasure Map, it's going to be relatively quick to complete compared to other maps aimed at Countess. And the reason being is that the mice at Queso Canyon, it's fairly easy to target very specific mice. With the variety of queso cheese, you can complete the map pretty quick. I was playtesting a little bit. I could solo the map in about 30 to 40 hunts. So I'd imagine a team of 5 working on that will just be cranking out the maps pretty quick. So with that in mind, the scroll case, it's going to cost fewer relics because we're kind of anticipating you're going to be doing more, you're going to be completing a greater quantity of maps. And with that in mind as well, the rewards, the quantities are a little bit smaller because you're probably going to end up doing more maps in general. And shadow charms in Queso Canyon maps, that's an interesting suggestion, we'll keep it in mind. Will queso chests have tonic or pump charms? Yes, both. Mini event for Queso Canyon. Maybe a little too early to add a mini event, but at some point. You don't need flaming, I'd imagine. Yes, you will. I think Queen Casada will be on every single map, so you will need flaming. You will need your wildfire bait at the ready. Open to suggestion or feedback to the opposite of that, but without Queen Quesada, it's this incredibly easy map to complete. So I think the Queen Quesada mouse needs to be on every single map for sure. Jacobs asks, how far are the devs in this area? Where am I? I'm at a level 5 pump right now with 168 out of 300 nacho toward level 6. On a related note to the maps as well, actually, that short duration of the maps, the ability to single-handedly finish them in 30 to 40 hunts, or even quicker if you're lucky, it proposed an interesting, or presented an interesting problem with rare map dust. So because you're able to go through it so quickly, kind of while playing this, it didn't really feel worth the value of rare map dust to actually dust the map. So we're looking for ways to address this, looking for suggestions. One thing we're thinking about is just putting more wild tonic, more queso pump charms, some magic essence, as well as a chance of finding higher tier spices in the rare chests. So to kind of make sure that the value of rare map dust still makes sense when you use these maps that you're churning through relatively quickly. Just because it's so easy to encounter and target specific mice in the region, you can do the maps pretty quick. So kind of wondering what hunters think about that, kind of making the two chest contents a little bit different. There might be magic essence in the rare one that isn't in the normal one. George asks, why not require catching multiple of the same mice? Unfortunately, that functionality does not exist in our treasure map implementation. Ina asks, what factored into deciding the notch prices for bait keep and ultimate charms? It was the living garden was used as sort of the benchmark of how fast you can get an ultimate charm in the living garden. It's slightly slower to go and get 400,000 notch or 375,000, I guess, for a ultimate charm. So it's over 10,000 hunts to get that much. Kate says, as long as you can't leech your way to skipping end bits. I think there'll be no notch in the treasure maps. I think that's important so that in order to have a level 10 pump, you need to be hunting in the region. You need to have completed the adventure. I guess you don't need to have completed the adventure, but you'd be working on the adventure. You'd probably be doing it in a silly way if you got a level 10 pump but have not captured Inferna yet. So there will be no notch in the treasure chests. Slightly upgraded with Fool's Gold, says Chip. I'm not sure what you're referring to upgrade, though. You need 300 nacho boss for a bait keep. 3,000 there to find that. It depends. There's different strategies. If all you want is nacho out of the area, then sort of how you choose what tier of cheese you use to make, where you're going to use the tonic, how you're going to use pump charms kind of plays into a role. But during playtesting, the best I could do, I think I got maybe 35 nacho per hunt was sort of my high score in terms of just trying to get a sheer massive volume of nacho as fast as I can. After I think 10,000 hunts, I ended up averaging about 35 nacho per hunt. Oh, Chip likes the magic essence idea. It would be nice to have fool's gold in the chests. The original design in the area, we did want to incorporate fool's gold. We just couldn't make it work. So I don't think it needs another source of fool's gold because there's not too many compelling uses for it. We did kind of want to add it to this area. Unfortunately, it just didn't really gel well with the design. So we made with a heavy heart, we made the choice to cut that from the design. What's in the works for new areas down the road? Not that I'm rushing the new one, but people ask sooner or later. Well, I think, unfortunately, event season really had us busy. We got really bogged down. It's still a huge testament to the team. I was sweating the 10th birthday release. I thought we weren't even going to have it ready in time for MouseHunt's 10th birthday, but we definitely had a lot of work going on during event season. That put us a little behind schedule. I think this is probably going to be the only area added to the game this year. As we're getting ready, we're already shifting back gears to work on the Halloween event and get back into event season. So it'll probably be next year before we have another permanent area in the game. That said, hopefully, if anything, maybe in November we might be able to squeeze something in, but it's a big uncertainty. We've got to kind of see how much headway we make on some other stuff. Upgrade map with fool's gold instead of rare map dust. That's interesting. If you could upgrade it with something else other than rare map dust, that would also sort of help address the issue of the chest not feeling worth the cost of rare map dust. If you use something else, that's an interesting suggestion. Any news on the Mausoleum Lab update? Actually, yeah, that is one of the things we're shifting gears to as well. So it's a slightly smaller project, and we try to at least once a year go back and overhaul one of the older areas to help new players coming through the game. And we've had a lot of great success, and that's good for the game as well. We last updated the mountain, and that really helped players get through the mountain, make it to the lab, but kind of we see more players dropping off now in the lab because there's no HUD there. There's not as interesting objectives to pursue. So that is on our radar. Want to get working on that fairly soon. Add more crates to Clawshot City for higher ranks. Open to suggestion, but a little bit, I don't know if that's something we'll do. Unfortunately, Varmint Valley got very sort of self-contained, and so we tried with Fort Rocks to help it branch out a little bit, involve more power types, get more involved in the overall game progression. But Clawshot City and the train, they ended up feeling very isolated, where even if the train, the reward for the train is something to make you better at the train, just inherently makes it not feel like a stepping stone or like you're getting better to move on to a different goal. So Fool's Gold's in a bit of a weird spot there. We were hoping we could incorporate it into this area and then maybe get a storyline going with that currency, but I think it's going to have to probably just reside in the Varmint Valley region and stay as it is for the foreseeable future anyway. Fool's Gold could work while mining for Notchore in the quarry. Actually, there is a trickle of Fool's Gold there. I think that was the last remnant of the design, but you can't use it in the area. But there is a small trickle of the sort of the trail off of Fool's Gold in this area. Jacob says, Magic Essence drop from Dust Map sounds great considering the usefulness of Magic Essence in this area makes it way smoother. That's good to hear. On a similar note, some of the mice in Queso Canyon, they also drop Magic Essence, again, just because it is so useful in the area. There's a lot of places to use it, so we added a trickle as you're going through the area. I believe Inferna has a pretty good chance of dropping Magic Essence, And the various plains mice as well, I think or at least a handful of them, they have a chance to drop essence. So there's just kind of a trickle going through the game to help supply the marketplace or help you strategically use it. Maybe that trickle will help you use magic essence to make your batch of wildfire or batch of flaming queso. So you kind of get just enough to use strategically. And as well as the game in a whole, these trickle of items, anything that's tradable at least, it sort of puts more into the game, which helps supply match demand, hopefully. All right, so we should get on to the last section of Feedback Friday that I had planned, which is a feedback question on Feedback Friday. Imagine that. And we'll wrap things up here. It's already been over a half hour. Time flies. So the feedback question has to do about a new treasure map. So last week, and I think it was Brian, my apologies if it was somebody else's suggestion, but that's where my memory serves me anyway, is last Feedback Friday we had an interesting suggestion from the chat for an alternative use for the unstable Ember gadgets, and it was to add a sort of epic treasure map that you could purchase using your gadgets, similar to what we did with Fulmina's Tooth and Lightning Scroll cases. So we put a little bit of thought into it and thought, well, what could that epic map be? We're looking for suggestions and feedback. Our current proposal is an unstable scroll case that contains a relatively long map, maybe 50 to 100 mice, something pretty big. But it's almost completely random, so you just don't know what mice are going to show up on that map. Probably the only rule would be they'd all be count level and below, because that's where you obtain the scroll case. So you might find one that just has a whole bunch of difficult mice on it through poor luck, or you might get lucky and there's a map that just has a whole bunch of really quick and easy mice to capture to get to the end and claim the treasure chest. And the suggestions of 48, putting 48 mice on the map. It's coming into the chat there. Gilded Slightning Rainbow Mega Map. That's quite the mouthful suggestion. Sounds interesting, sounds neat. Another idea I think would be an unstable scroll case, so when you open it, you just don't know what map you're going to get. So it could give you a Slayer map, it could give you a easy Relic Hunter map, it could give you a Sunken City map. You don't know what's going to be in the scroll case until you open it. Sounds fun, sounds interesting. What would the rewards be? Well, to kind of fit the epic theme, we'd probably want to do an aura with the map as well. But other than that, we're open to sort of feedback what sort of rewards you would like to see for that map. Definitely the rewards would be what make it interesting, because if you get a map and it has a lot of the easy mice on it, then the reward might feel especially juicy, quick and easy to grab. But then you open up the map and you see, oh, I got some tough mice. Okay, well, now I got to kind of slog through this. Or by the end of this, when you're earning a gold crown for Queen Quesada, you might have enough gadgets that you open it up, you're like, you know what? Too many hard mice. Throw it out. Let me try again. Aura for the win. Would the rewards be worth bothering over map? That's the million-dollar question, indeed. I like both ideas. Why not have both? Says Kate. Love option B. Love the unknown what map you will get. An issue is, I guess, the amount of difficulty, the effort that goes into obtaining the gadgets. That if you open it up and there's a Sunken City treasure map in there, you might have felt, well, I could have just bought that map from the general store, I guess, or from the cartographer. So that's one issue with getting a random map, is there would need to be sort of a risk versus reward mechanic of some sort, where the unstable maps really, or the unstable scroll is really easy to get. And it's more about kind of opening up a bunch of them to see if you can just, cool, I got a Slayer. That was way too easy to get that Slayer. That felt good, if you get lucky anyway. So I think the interesting part of that setup would be about the odds of the different maps you're going to get versus the opportunity cost of getting the scroll case to begin with. Ryan says, eek, too many auras already. It was stack another one up over there. I know in the Idea Bank we we want to revisit the UI for auras to kind of condense them down when you have a lot. But Brian says, open map, shelter, toss. The unstable idea is very good. All right, well, maybe we'll explore that a little bit, subject it to a little bit of play testing. But next week, maybe we'll try to come up with some mouse lists, see if the unstable map idea will work. And by all means, when we post the summary, you can kind of keep the feedback coming of what sort of rewards you'd like to see for that map. We haven't put too much thought into that yet. Ryan says, I don't like the idea. Sally says, my profile feels naked if I don't have a map going. Chance to get a dusted map then, says Astro. That'd be interesting. The unstable scroll case, when you open it, it's always a dusted map, but you just don't know what map you're going to get. That would add some interesting sort of opportunity cost kind of mechanics to the map, where it would feel worthwhile, you know, or feel worth the effort of getting the gadget for the chance of getting basically a free dusted really good map. That could be interesting. Map and RNG don't go well together, says KDM. Random mice list better than random scroll, in my opinion, says Brian. Ryan says, if it's obtainable from another source, you'll usually not do the random one. I think that is kind of the problem if it's a scroll case and you open it and it gives you a random map, then something has to be compelling to make you want to do that instead of then going and just getting the map normally, I guess. So it is a bit of an awkward issue to try to make that setup interesting. Why is there no nacho instead of the gadgets? Again, it kind of goes back to the mechanics of resources just feeding up into an end to convert into something else. You do get a trickle of spices. They're just not as dramatic as the nacho. And toward the end of the area, nacho becomes less important. Once you have a level 10 pump, the nacho isn't as exciting. But you'll still get a trickle from capturing nacho or nachos. Random scroll case. Does that mean it can include stuff like Heart of the Meteor? Unfortunately, the Heart of the Meteor mouse and the Warpath mouse, the Artillery Commander, took me a second to remember that mouse's name, they can't appear on maps because if you don't have any projector parts, the only way to get them without using the marketplace would be then to go do some maps, and while you're on a map, you can't do another map. So those are sort of scratched from the list of possible mice that can appear on maps. I think even the Slayer, I think the Heart of the Meteor was on a Slayer map, and we ended up removing it because it was a little bit awkward when it showed up. Can we get the amount of sand dollar owned in the Sunken City HUD? Yeah, that would be a nice little quality of life improvement, I think, if we could fit that in. Definitely when you go to the shop to spend them, you can see how many you own, so that kind of helps if you're saving up for something specific. Visit the shop and you can check out how many you own versus the cost. Freeschmidt says, I think a random list of mice with levels of possible mice, like levels of Slayer maps. Yeah, that could be interesting. So you could get an easy unstable map, and maybe it's shorter. That said, your account countess at this point to get the map, so I don't know if we could set up the tiers and it would still be interesting, but it might give another choice to make of when you get the sort of the easy version of it. Do you want to scrap it and get a step up so that you get a bigger chest? That's a little bit of a commitment too. We'd have a lot of different tiers of chests, a lot more rewards to sort of balance out if realistically players aren't going to be too interested in doing the easy and the medium versions. Then those all those rule sets and all those chests will exist, but nobody's really interested in actually obtaining them. All right, as we approach the 45-minute mark, and my throat continues to dry out from speaking for so long, we will shift to the trivia question to end on. I'll rehydrate with coffee. I heard that's a very hydrating beverage to be sipping on. And this week's trivia question, and the answer is not 48 as the guesses start coming in, is which mouse can drop the most wild tonic at once? And these digit answers are incorrect. It's the name of a mouse. And I think I gave away the answer earlier in the stream, to be honest. Purple says coffee actually dehydrates. That's what I was going for. I was being sarcastic. Nachos. Yes, that is correct. KDM with the correct answer of Nachos the Molten. Nachos the Molten can drop up to 3 wild tonic when you capture them. Sleepy Merchant is a close second at 1. I think it's a 1 in 5 chance to drop 1. And it is a 24% chance, or 25% chance to encounter that mouse. So what is that? 0.25 times 0.2. That means you have a 5% chance every time in the river to get a wild tonic, which means every 20 hunts in the river with Super Breeze should get you a tonic. Which means if you do 60 hunts a day, you get 3 a day. Demon Eye says, coffee makes you go to the bathroom too. I think, yeah, I would agree. So the reward link, let me dig that out. Fresh off the presses here. Nachos the Molten. That's correct. Reward link. Let me get the reward link on the screen as well, in case you're watching this recorded. And you made it to the 45-minute mark. Bravo. The real question, if you're watching it recorded, did you set it to ×2 speed? Where is it? Text. I would like to add text, please. It's new text. It's a reward link. Computer's getting hot. It's up streaming. Alright. That's not very readable, but yeah, good luck with that. Let's put it up there. Let's get rid of this charm. There we go. Ooh, that's some nice high contrast white on a light blue background. So this week's challenge is, can you read that link? George says, when watch recorded, always 2 times speed. I agree. On the train, not so much now. I tend to actually do work and I code on the train, but I used to listen to podcasts a lot, and I would crank those up to ×2. I was always surprised at how well I got used to listening to people speak twice as fast and still understand what they're saying. Nacho's tonic drop rate, I think it's 1 in 5. Like I said, by the end of the area, once you really get established, Nachos isn't particularly difficult to capture anymore. The level 10 pump really comes through, and so you'd be surprised on how fast you can actually cycle Nachos and Inferna. And that's also why the Wildfire Cheese needs 10 of each, because eventually with a level 10 pump, and that's kind of when you really want to be set to be going after Queen Quesada, you can really get those 2 bosses cycling pretty quick. Every time you got a new area or a new event released, but all donation item packages were all too pricey. Well, we're open to feedback on that. We do kind of keep an eye on the things we have for sale and the prices. We kind of break everything down to cost per piece. I had similar feedback with Queso Canyon about the gift basket and the supply kit, just sort of perception-wise looking at the shop and seeing, you know, a $5 basket next to a $49 kit. People are asking for something in between. Something we've noticed, though, is a lot of players actually, they don't go for the baskets and the kits all that much as they kind of pick out a few smaller items. So we often find people, if they're looking to, you know, support us and spend $10, $20, we often find that they kind of fill their cart with just a little bit of tonic, a little bit of cheese, that sort of thing, kind of build your own bundle. So that's kind of where, that's what influenced the decision of why there's a $5 basket and a $49 kit. Was the 15 and the 20 weren't particularly popular, so we added more price points of individual items, kind of gave more real estate to that. But open to feedback, certainly, of what players would like to see in the shops. KDM says, feed coffee to Dave, good, feed coffee to laptop. I don't feel so good, yeah. I'm never going to live that down. I'm still mildly embarrassed every time I use this new laptop here when I think about the laptop I destroyed with coffee. It's still an embarrassing memory for me. I'm sure that'll be some 3 a.m. I'll wake up like, oh, right, I ruined a laptop. Kind of can't get back to sleep feelings. Wow, 2 temporal shadow plates. I hope not. And I had my teammates test the link here for me. Just I always got to triple check to make sure that Larry's not overly generous and doesn't make a typo in his reward link. Inferna is harder to catch than Nachos. I believe she is a little stronger. but it kind of comes down to your traps as well. So if you're coming back and you have some really huge traps like the temporal turbine and the event horizon, then that might affect things. Or if you're kind of a count and you just came from Fort Rocks and you have the droid arch magus and the interdimensional crossbow trap, kind of play into which mouse you might find easier. Sally says she likes you get 4 months of Golden Shield instead of 2. We kind of do that by price point. So I think around the $20 point is when we do 2. And I don't know off the top of my head the level at which it switches over to 4, but it's definitely by the $49 price point. And on that note, unless there's any final questions or feedback, I made a little list. I did my best here. I don't think I wrote down everything to include in the summary, but I did write down why is Wild Tonic not sold for Not Shore in the general store? Did you expect anyone to finish it in 3 days? And why are things so expensive for shops in the Not Shore? And I think there were more questions, but I should probably have somebody else in here writing things down for the summary. Any info on the Archduke area? Nothing new to share. No, it's still very much on the drawing board. New Relic Hunter season. I think that's approaching. That's coming up in our roadmap. That'll be in the not too distant future. And we'll probably, on a topic of Feedback Friday, we'll be looking for sort of quality life improvements in maps in general. Typically, when we start a new Relic Hunter season, we like to do a few interface tweaks, add a few new features to maps, address some issues or feedback that players have as well. Journal theme for maps. For Queso Canyon, yes, there is a journal theme. I think it's actually already painted, so there will be a journal theme added with the treasure maps. If the random mouse map can be tiered, why not sell different tiers at different areas based on rank? Yeah, we could possibly do that. Might cut down on some of the random nature of it, I guess, but it might help you choose to make sure you don't have like white or gray mice. You have still easy to capture mice that are a little bit more rank appropriate. But again, it kind of goes down to if not a lot of players are interested in doing a map that's all random Narnia and Burrows mice, then maybe it doesn't need to exist, and we just make a map that's a little more targeted. Any updates on Ronza? Nothing to share. No. Demon Eye says Ronza can stay away. Purple says, shh, don't say your name. Say my name, keep it down. Alright, on that note, before we get to the hour mark, this has been a lengthy Feedback Friday. Thanks for joining me, Hunters. Thank you for the early first impressions, the early feedback, questions of Queso Canyon. I'll post a summary on the tavern and kind of keep the feedback and the suggestions coming as well. And we'll see you next week. It'll probably be Jacob, I think. So again, thanks for joining me. Happy hunting. The stream will begin shortly. That's not right at all, is it? There we go. And that looks better. All right, bye for real.